Welcome to The Grant, the EU funding podcast. My name is Niels Tudor Winter and I am the creator, editor and host of The Grant. The Grant is an independent, non-commercial podcast initiative with the ambition to dig into all corners of the EU R&D funding system on topics of interest for the full EU R&D funding community. I have reached to the budget in my timeline series, which is one of the last things to finish in the proposal process. To fill in the budget template, you need to be aware of the terminologies, the different budget categories and the partner categories. This I have actually done myself a couple of times, but to make sure that I get the explanations right, I have invited Horizon Europe budget specialist Jelena Kajganovic from the EMG group into the virtual podcast studio to take us all through the budget template, how to fit it in, and what to be aware of. It can be rather confusing, especially the first couple of times you have to do it, so we tried to make it rather pedagogical, running through the essentials. Please enjoy. The Grant. Welcome to The Grant, the EU funding podcast. I am today having another guest on board. The timeline series, if you've been following this, you will know that I just passed the sections, the written sections in the proposal, and have reached to now the budget. And my last episode was a long solo marathon explaining all the tables in implementation section 3, and I kept saying in that episode, this relates to the budget, this relates to the budget, this relates to the budget. So, and this is what you're going to get now. So before I say anything more about this, because as I always say, it's not nice to have a guest on board when you leave them hanging in the waiting room. So, or even if it's virtual. Jelena, welcome.
Hi, thank you.
So I allied myself with a budget specialist because anyone who have ever done anything in relation to EU Horizon proposals and budget knows that it can be quite complex. I've done it myself, actually, more times than I like to think about. But I really wanted a guest on board for this to make sure that everything is explained correctly in this generic episode. So enough about this fly-in, Jelena. Please present yourself to the listeners.
Hi, thanks for having me on board. Just to start off with a small thing, I always like to say that budgeting is easy, reporting is a bit more complex. So I hope that in today's episode we can actually show that while we do have to have some principles in mind, I think this is the easier part of the whole proposal writing, because everything else requires a lot more effort. If you have your ideas and your activities settled, the budget kind of comes naturally. But let's see, maybe that's just my view. So once again, yes, my name is Jelena Kajganovic. I come from Europa Media trainings and EMG group, to be more precise. The trainings part is I mentioned first because we put our experience into practice, and we actually have all of these different courses related to budgeting, reporting, project writing, project management, and so on. We go into some horizontal issues as well. So yeah, make sure to check it out. Our experience is also based on the actual project writing. So we are not classic consultants. We actually conduct projects, we apply. So I hope that today you will also see that all of my stories come from my experience in this regard.
Thanks. Now that was your as I allowed you the shameless promotion of the company. That's
Right.
good. Now,
Yeah.
just shortly about yourself. So your
Mhm.
main capacities, what's your experience on EU R&D proposals?
So I have been in this world of Horizon 2020 and now Horizon Europe for about 3 years. Before this, I was in Erasmus Plus National Agency. So I've been in the proposal writing and the proposal monitoring in my previous work for quite some time. Mainly now, what I'm focusing on is that I'm trying to write those proposals that I find valuable. I'm also coordinating one Horizon 2020 project. This is kind of my main point right now, and where I would say 60% of my working hours go to. And then the rest of the 40%, I'm a trainer. I'm focusing on the budget and proposal writing. Actually, project management as well, but I would say that's a bit less from my side. So, yeah, as you said, I'm doing this kind of on regular basis.
Thanks. Yes, and very nice. And this is also why I dragged you in here in the virtual podcast studio. Gabriela is on my advisory board, and she was one of the first ones that I had in for as a guest for a guest episode, and I continue to have a nice connection with her. I will soon have a new recording with her, so please send my regards.
We'll do.
Elena, you are short on time, and these episodes they sort of have a tendency to run long. So let's try to hit the go button. Today we will talk about the budget template. It's a generic episode, so we will it can be a little dry as a subject, but we will spice it up as good as we can. So the idea here, just to make a short fly-in, the background of the budget template, and if you have a look at it, if you see this for the first time, it looks fairly complex. Years of experience and a wish to, I don't know, cut things up so you make sure that everybody gets the right amount of money? Or do you actually know the background of why the template looks like it looks?
I'm not sure how it came about, but I think the idea here is actually to make it as simple as possible, I would say. I don't find it very complex because it's quite easy when you know who your partners are and your activities to kind of divide it among these categories. Now, we know that the commission is kind of going also towards the lump sum. And that's going to be completely different when we talk about budgeting. I think that in the new Horizon Europe work programs, you're going to see more and more lump sum, and then kind of good luck to all of us with that, because I believe then the budgeting stage is going to be more complex, while the reporting stage is going to be kind of easy. So I think that this is probably the simplest way to approach it. We have the clear categories, we have one per partner, and then I would say the more complex budget is for us internally within the consortium. So when you see the breakdown of the categories that the evaluators see, that the commission sees, that's kind of straightforward, no? But the ones that we need for the other costs, for the travel costs, for everything else that we will be actually doing within the project, it needs to be a lot more detailed. So I think that this template is actually quite basic.
And that's what we're going to try to explain why it is, because when you have a look at it, if you see this for the first time, it doesn't look that simple. So that's what we are. That's what you're going to help me and the listeners with today. I've seen it many times, so I only say this as an agent of the listener, so to say. But let's see here. Maybe we should first have a talk about how to prepare to fill in the budget template, so the preparation for it.
So actually, what I would like to maybe emphasize here is that building a budget should always be one of the last things that you're doing when you are preparing the proposal. So once you have actually settled all of your activities and agreed with all of your partners what your activities are going to be, then the budget comes, right? So
Yeah.
oftentimes it's going to be the opposite. So I'm not saying that this is in real life, this might look a little bit different. Now I'm just talking about the ideal case scenario, how it should look like. So first and foremost, you need to know, let's put it simply, who does what.
Yeah.
Right, so this is the first thing. The second thing I would like to say is that actually we need to be familiar with these basic financial principles. So the commission has some basic financial principles that we need to be able to follow, and this is going to help us both for the budgeting but more so even for the reporting. So everything we're doing within the budgeting stage is our preparation for good implementation and for the least possible changes later on while we're implementing the project,
Yeah.
because every change is kind of burdensome. It takes a lot of time. It takes explanations towards the commission and so on. So we're trying to make it as precise as possible while respecting these principles and at the same time not really knowing how everything is going to go, right? So our budget is our assessment. And we always need to remember this. And this is not something that I'm saying. This is also what the commission is saying. So you will be able to see it in the commission's documents as well, that the budget is an assessment, because think about it, we can't really know how much each single item is going to cost in the next 2 or 3 years, from a simple plane ticket that we might need to everything else, right? So we're trying to assess as well as possible, and then we're trying to follow these basic financial principles that the commission has set out for us.
Yeah.
Now,
And I think
yeah, some of
maybe
these. Mhm.
you can
Go.
also, just for the average listener here, it's the budget is it's a translation of all your work, so to say. It's down to what
Exactly.
what's the price of the pig, so to say, as you would say. So and this is what is, of course, tricky when you need to gather and assess and estimate, but it's that's what it is. It's basically, that's where it's get down to the hard facts of the EU funding. That yeah, it's so that's,
Mhm.
of course, that's a starting point. And what Jelena also just said is that you come here, it's best if you can, the best thing is to do this in the end, and you can't really do this before the very end. It's not possible, because all the discussions about activities that you've been having in the work package description, the work package groups discussions, where you have carved out step by step all the kind of nitty-gritty activities, this is, you cannot until the very end get the exact budget, but you can make an estimate. And this is what I think you can do in your preparations, and any good proposal preparing or a coordinator of the proposal process would try to get at an early stage your an assessment of what you think that it's going to cost your activities in there. So that's I guess the overall fly-in, so to say, on this.
Exactly. We do have, and that's a kind of a fortunate thing, that we do have this assessment already set out for us by the commission, right? So the commission is telling us at the beginning of every topic, we expect, the project to be able to have around 2 to 3 million, for example.
Mhm.
So we expect successful results of the projects to be able to be achieved with 2 to 3 million, 5 million, 1 million, whatever this amount may be. So we're aiming for that. We're really trying not to go way too above or way too below, because at the end of the day, we need to make sure that we're covering the scope. Right, so we can go, if the assessment of the commission is, let's say, 3 million, we can go for 3.2, or we can go for 2.7, but we shouldn't go for let's say 5, right? Because then we are kind of not respecting what the commission wants from us, first of all, and then second of all, We are guaranteeing that we're going to cover the whole scope. If they, for example, expect 3 proposals to be funded, then we are guaranteeing that we're going to cover scope that normally 2 proposals would cover. So this is kind of too ambitious. I would say that this would kind of be frowned upon, probably.
Yeah, that's of course of course stick within the budget. But
the recommended, yes,
by all
amount.
means. Now, Jelena, the basic principles.
Right. So I would say that these are also kind of common sense rules, but I think it's important to know them right off the bat. So the first one is that actually we're spending the taxpayers' money, right? So
Yeah,
this is
exactly.
all of our money going to research and innovation. So as a minimum, when we are kind of using this money, we need to respect these principles of good accounting, good housekeeping. So first we have our national legislation, and then we have European rules as well. But at the end of the day, again, I'm saying that this is kind of a common sense thing. So having a very opulent project dinner with caviar and champagne would actually be something that would be problematic in this sense. So again, I'm saying this is kind of common sense, right? But we can sometimes go overboard. This is not at the end of the day free money, so we need to justify with our internal rules, national legislation, and EU rules, and at the end of the day, our good accounting, that we really are keeping track and bearing in mind that this is everybody's money, and that it's primarily for these research and innovation purposes.
Yeah.
So this is just something to have in mind. And then we have also this difference that is sometimes not so clear, a difference between a cost and the price, right? So this is called cost reimbursement for a reason. Right? There's a reason we say it's a cost reimbursement. This means you cannot charge any commercial rates, right? So let's say we could have a consultancy fee that is a certain amount of money per day or per hour, but could we charge this for the project? Could this go on the project as my commercial rate as a consultant? No. So the answer is no. We cannot include any profit. What could go on the project is just the salary. So the percentage of salary corresponding to the percentage of time that I spent on a certain project. If it's 40% of my time, then 40% of my overall salary, but definitely not my commercial rate that would go towards any other organization. So
Exactly.
There's no profit here. We cannot charge anything that we normally charge, just what we actually spent.
Exactly. And so this is one of the basic principles of EU funded proposals projects, that it's actual spent money. All costs should be actual costs, and not imagined costs, so to say, of profit, just like Jelena has explained.
Right, exactly. And this has many levels. It sounds pretty straightforward, but it does actually have layers to this, right? So it's easy to understand that we cannot charge a profit, but also what happens with the less experienced organizations sometimes is that they hire a person part-time, let's say 50% of their time, and they plan that this is going to be charged on the project, right? However, they don't spend this 50% of time on the project, or they completely assess that perhaps if they have more heavily focused activities in the second part of the project, they cannot just kind of report in the middle of the project half of their PMs. Let's say they have 20 and they immediately report 10. Okay, but how are you going to do all of these other activities in the second part of the project?
Yeah.
So there's no, you need to be aware that this really, really needs to reflect exactly what happened, not what you imagined would happen. So if
Yeah.
the project is 36 months, let's say, we don't report exactly half if we didn't spend it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then costs need to be at the end of the day eligible, right? So is everything going to be eligible from the moment you decide that you want to apply to the to apply and have a proposal until the moment that you finish your project if it's granted? Definitely no.
And here I'm going to put a break. I'm going to put a break on you
Mhm,
because we need
mhm,
to, in this episode, we will also need to explain terms and
mhm,
what they mean. So this
mhm,
illegible costs. It's
mhm.
everybody who steps into this part and has been working with this meet this term all the time. So can you explain the term just?
So these are those costs that the Commission will actually recognize as those that it will reimburse.
Yeah.
So not everything will be reimbursed for us. We have some outdated costs. For example, your entire preparation for the proposal is definitely something that you invested in the proposal writing in this future project if it gets granted. But is this eligible for the commission? Is our time invested in the proposal eligible? No. The answer is no.
Mm.
So these are outdated costs, or something can be unjustified simply. They decide that it's an unjustified cost, even though you spent it on the project. Let's say you can even have unforeseen costs. You can say that you didn't foresee any subcontracting in your project, and then you need it suddenly. The commission can easily say you still need to do all of your work, but you
Mhm.
didn't foresee this subcontracting, and we cannot add it for you, and we will not reimburse it because it's not justified. You didn't see it ahead. We thought that this was within your capacities. You didn't foresee that you need to subcontract it, and then in this regard, we cannot reimburse it. So in this sense, it would be a non-eligible cost, and you will have some of those definitely.
And it's what you can say is that the contract you will make with the commission when you settle the when you win the proposal, then you make a contract with the commission, and that's your document. That's what's in there defines what you can spend money on and what can be refunded. And if it's not in the document, then it's not in the contract. It's like anything else in this world. If it's in the
Mm,
contract, yes. If it's not, no.
yes.
Yeah,
Pretty good explanation, I think. That's about it.
yeah. Should we shortly run through the partner category? So when one looks at the table, you will see on the vertical line you have the participant names, and you will have those. You will have research organizations, you will have companies, you will have public organizations, often, or NGOs and so on. And these are partner categories that can affect the funding rate. So the figures you will need to fill in on the horizontal line.
Mhm,
And they made it more and more simple as the framework programs have moved on, right? So
mhm,
it's so you have so the project actions are what we need to look at here, right? The combination of project action and partner. But actually, the only real acceptance from 100% funding, that's the private companies in the innovation actions, right?
exactly. So the only thing that we can have here as a sort of something that you would have to explain to our partners, or if you are this type of organization. So if you're a for-profit organization and you want to apply for an innovation action, so as we know, we have three different ones: coordination support action, innovation action, research and innovation action, right? So I hope you've been through this in the previous episodes, but
I
just
did.
to emphasize once again.
Yeah.
So in the innovation action, if you're a for-profit organization, usually the funding rate is 70%. So only 70% of your planned costs can be and will be reimbursed. So in the budget, we're planning this like that. And then at the end of the day, when we're reporting, we'll report everything that we have spent and we'll get 70% if we're a for-profit organization.
Yeah.
Right? So this can also be a different rate. Sometimes it's 60%, sometimes 50%. You need to see this in the actual topic. So this will be emphasized. If it's not emphasized, then it's 70%.
Yes, exactly. And what has happened over the years is that it comes more and more exceptions actually into the individual calls. I noticed they didn't used to have this earlier in earlier framework programs. It was, if it was like this, then they had agreed the funding levels for the organizations and categories of projects, and then that was that. But it started to sneak in to sort of sieve into especially where it's calls with the heavy expectation on private industry on board, if they want them to commit more.
Exactly.
And then you have these the old BBI. I don't remember exactly the bio-based industries. It has another name now, but there are some of these partnerships that makes their own work additions to the work programs, and they sometimes also have different rules on how much industry can get. But let's not talk about them now because it's just going to get too complex. Jelena, time is flying, so let's move on to. So it should be clear with the partner categories. It's quite simple, yeah.
Yeah, I think this is the simplest part to sort of understand.
Yeah. So cost categories.
Yes. This complicated but not so complicated part. So just maybe a basic thing, sort of a basic distinction that you may notice. First, we will have direct costs, and then we'll have indirect costs. Right, so there is this basic distinction between these, and then under direct cost categories we have all of these that we see that are the most important for us, being personnel costs, subcontracting, purchase costs, other costs, and this is all we sort of need to think about.
So direct costs.
Yes. Those are the ones that we are planning, right? So they need to reflect our activities, they need to reflect our efforts. And at the end of the day, this is what we are planning to do. This is why I'm assuming that in your previous episode, you were referring to the budget so much. Maybe something that is important to understand here is that the budget itself is going to be in part A, which is not evaluated by the evaluators. So this part A, the actual budget categories and how you divided them, that's not going to, let's put it like this, it's not going to matter a lot to the evaluators, right?
Unless it exceeds.
Unless it exceeds. Exactly. Or it goes under, because then probably you cannot achieve what they expect you to achieve. So both are kind of risky, right? So you're really trying to keep it at that level that they recommend. But what's the most important part here is the efforts. So the efforts table is in the part B, which is being evaluated by the evaluators. So this is where all of your work will be reflected. Now, we can have some other elements also that are important from the budget. So what you are going to subcontract, for example. If you make this mistake, what is subcontracted and it should not be subcontracted, then that's kind of a mistake that they're going to notice. But this is also from the content side as well. So you cannot subcontract something that is a core activity. So it will be definitely reflected in how you're writing your proposal itself. But what we need to focus on the most is this division of efforts and how is going to actually reflect the work of all the partners.
It's what I did in my last episode on the tables on implementation section. Here, because you have the effort tables, in different kind of varieties, like aggregated and split out on each partner, work package divided, and so on and so forth. So that's what I did in that episode. Say, look, all this, that's your hours, that's your man hours, that's the resources persons are doing to carry out the tasks that you have been planning in your discussions with the partners. In the budget tables, you're gonna have to put euros in that, translate it into euros, those activities.
Yes.
And that's especially category 1, the personal costs. It's for most of the partners, it's the biggest post, normally the personal costs.
Normally, yes.
So is there anything specific we need to mention about that, the personal costs?
Well, so the personnel costs is something that is, as you mentioned, the biggest, usually the biggest category that we need to take care of, and this is first and foremost just reflecting everybody's activities.
Yeah.
What is the most common mistake here is that we're trying to artificially balance these efforts. Recently, I had, if I can sort of put it on the level of an anecdote, because I think it's also interesting to hear. Yes, because I mean this is quite dry, so it's important to know how in real life how these issues can be tackled and what can show up if you don't have an experienced coordinator or if they are not aware of these rules. There is this table that you may see when you're filling out your proposal that is telling us that if our other costs, so all of these other costs, purchase costs and so on, are going above 15% of our personnel costs, so per partner, that we need to explain. And what happened is that we were a partner in one of the proposals, and we just sent our assessment of our budget, our efforts, everything else, or all of our other costs. And what we got as a reply is that your other costs are actually going over 15%. So this is not allowed. So please either lower your other costs or increase your efforts. So increase your PMs. This is something that mistake 101, right? In the budgeting, you cannot artificially push up your PMs. Your person month. Now, I don't know if we should maybe go into details on what the person month is. Maybe I'm taking it for granted that everybody knows what we're talking about.
I have sort of explained, but just to make sure that I did. Person months, well, it's the commission's way of translating efforts, so to say. It's a commission stamp, so to say, on efforts. So they use the calculation of months. So all the efforts by months, basically. That's what it is.
Exactly.
So it's not by day, it's not by week, it's by month. So what each employee that you will allocate to the work, the effort, the aggregated amount of months total.
Exactly.
Well, all your employees basically involved.
Exactly. Another mistake that can happen is that you go and you send your assessment that, let's say I said in this case 25 PMs. And I was asked once, but how can you have 25 PMs when the project is 36 months? Right? So this is also a mistake that can happen with a little bit less experienced coordinator or somebody who hasn't coordinated before. So it doesn't mean that if a project is 36 months that we are going to have 36 PMs, right?
Yeah.
Because we'll not be working full time. This is a mistake that happens a lot with universities, with NGOs, with a lot of different organizations, is that they assume that a whole person will be employed working full time on a project.
Yeah.
this is usually not how it goes. It can happen, but it's very, very rare,
You
actually.
really need to
So
justify that
exactly,
to
exactly. So
make it
this would need to be
illegible
a
to stay in
very
the lingo.
exactly, very, very laborsome project it would have to be. So,
Yeah.
so definitely bear in mind that this 1 p.m. can be, let's say, 20% of my time, 30% of Niels's time, and then 50% of a third person working on this project within the same organization. Right. So within 1 month, we are splitting this PM among 3 people, 5 people, 2 people. It doesn't really matter, but usually this is how it's going to go, and then it's really kind of reflecting everything that is happening in the project, these personnel costs and the efforts that they're going to see. So the PMs, the numbers, need to also reflect everything you explained in your work packages. So if we cannot see the role of a certain partner in the work package, and it doesn't make sense that they should be there, and they, for whatever reason, have 4 PMs allocated for this work package, this would immediately raise a red flag for the
and
evaluators. Because
and
what
that's
are those PMs doing there if there's no tasks for
and
this partner?
you'll be surprised
Sorry.
out there. You'll be surprised out there how often this happens.
Oh, yes.
That partners just throw in PMs to get the what they expected to get from there, and you keep pushing. They say no, you cannot put man months there, and then they try to sneak them in somewhere else because they internally they internally have sort of a goal of how much they will need to get, even though they don't do the work that justifies it. So it's a nightmare. This is what I'm going to have in a second episode with one of my old colleagues, where we talk about the troubles of doing all this, the actual win. So yeah, so all these kind of what it happens actually when you need to do this work as a proposal preparer. Now, let's.
Yes.
I need to keep the nose in the track because you need to leave soon. So I just need to make sure that we cover the things at least for the main things here. So subcontracting. So subcontracting, the category B.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. The famous subcontracting.
Yeah. And what's the principles of illegible subcontracting?
So this is the sort of the question that we get a lot, and there's two things I would say to, maybe there's a lot more, but in my head there's two main things here. First of all, this difference between the subcontracting and contracting, right? So
Yeah.
subcontracting is a whole task. Don't put under subcontracting something that is a simple service. Let's say you are renting a venue for a conference, or you have, let's say, any type of other minor translation service or printing or so on. These are then purchase costs, right? So these are other goods and services. There's no need to subcontract this, even though in our head, maybe if we haven't applied for the projects before, it kind of becomes logical that, okay, somebody's translating something for us, so that's a subcontracting. No, that's a simple service because it's not the main task. It's not a huge task within your project. When we're subcontracting something, it really is a huge identifiable task. So this is the first thing. The second thing is that for the actual subcontracting, we need to be careful that we don't have our core activities. So this is also something that we need to be quite mindful of, that we cannot subcontract a publication. We cannot subcontract something that is actually our intellectual work, so something that we should be bringing to the table when it comes to this project. So the Commission, at the end of the day, is making this agreement with us, with the consortium, with the coordinator and all of the other partners, not with the subcontracting party. So this is why they are not responsible to the Commission. They can have auditing, but they're not responsible for the outcome. We are responsible for the outcome. So they want to hold us accountable. This is why everything that is an intellectual effort is actually what should go under our efforts. And then subcontracting is something that is simply not doable for us. Let's say if you are um, testing some new technology, and then you need somebody to dig out and put the pipes into the ground so that you could test this
Exactly.
technology.
Exactly.
It's okay that the company is digging, right? But
Yep.
it's not okay that the technology is not created by us. So
Exactly.
this is this main kind of thing, the main difference.
Yeah, it should be vital for the service for the thing to be carried out, for the research project to be able to carry it on, but it should not be something that is intellectual, so to say. So it should be something where you say, if we need to go from point B to C with the activities, we need to have this done. It's a big task, but it's something that is available on the market by normal companies that can carry these things out. That would be subcontracting, because it's not vital for the digging into the idea, cracking the idea you have, but it's a service you need for be able to get from point B to C or D to C to D and so on. Yeah.
Exactly, to test something, to put something into practice, or something that is not simply within the capabilities of the partnership. Exactly.
Purchase cost, definitely see that simple. Yeah. It's travel and equipment. And equipment, that's the largest post of the three. You have three different: travel and subsistence, equipment, and other goods, works, and services. And the equipment, that's what is often, in at least in technology projects, what is standing out, because often there would be something they need to buy. But maybe you explain.
Sure. So then we have purchase costs, right? So this we have three categories within that. We have travel costs, which is really kind of simple also to budget and to think about, because everything should be covered from point A to point B. If we're traveling to anything related to project implementation, it should be covered, right? So this is including all of our costs, and we're following our usual rules. So if we don't normally, let's just go back to those principles. If within our internal rules, we have that we are normally flying economy, then we wouldn't be flying business class just because we have the project money. So this is the first mistake that can happen, that we would need to justify to the auditors if we have done something along those lines. But really, anything else that is kind of covering your internal rules, whether it is that you have daily allowance or you collect all of the costs from your trip and you return it and then you get reimbursed. This is up to your internal rules. So they will accept everything as long as it's within your normal usual practices. So this is sort of easy to understand. And then definitely when you're budgeting this, try to give yourself a little bit of a cushion. So try to slightly overestimate, just because we can have huge changes when it comes to these travel costs.
Yeah.
And then equipment and infrastructure costs. So these can be quite large, but again, pretty straightforward. So if we're planning to purchase something that is necessary for the project, that is crucial for us to conduct certain activities within the project, then it can be covered. Now, what we need to be aware of here, and what is very important to know, is that we also have this usage rate. So let's say we are buying some very complex microscope, right? But we're going to be using it only 40% of its time for the project, and then 60% of the time we're going to be using it for whatever other activities within our institution that we can that we need it for. We will be able to get reimbursed for 40% of its price. So this is again a mistake that can happen quite often, that we say, okay, but it's allowed that we buy it, right? Great, so then we can charge it the whole thing on the project. No, this equipment also needs some kind of timesheets, the same way that you and I would need timesheets if we're participating in the project. So we need to prove that we have spent a certain amount of time on the project,
Yeah.
and then the rest of the time we have done something else.
And
Right?
there's
So if
also
it's
not.
100% of the time, then we can charge it on the project.
And how is it?
Mhm.
There's also something related to the what do you call that?
Depreciation.
Yeah. So when you buy, if you buy equipment and then yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
And how is it?
Good point.
How is it with that? Because if they have to take a mortgage or they have to take,
Yeah, exactly. So if we take the same example of this microscope, right? Let's say our depreciation period is 5 years, but our project is only 3 years.
exactly.
So what we could charge is 3/5 of the price. And then let's say we're using it 40% for the project, then just 40% of these 3/5 we could charge on the project.
That's very well explained.
And again, this is a common mistake. This is why I'm saying it. Yes, I mean it's quite easy to understand when you know, but if you don't know, then it's also easy to think that okay, but I need this equipment and they approved, so this means that we can have it, right? We can charge it on the project. It doesn't really go like this. So we need to be mindful of both of these things.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then the last one we have is these other goods and services within the purchase costs. And this is really everything else we can think of that we will need within the project. Any type of printing costs, translation of dissemination materials, any other translations, anything we need to organize our pilots, our events, our anything for our conferences, and so on. So this is pretty much anything else that goes under this category. And then in the last category, other costs, these are pretty kind of, I would say, straightforward, and they're sometimes for these very specific programs. So we have this financial support to third parties, internally invoiced goods and services. These are all very special categories. If you have one of these, then definitely you need to look a little bit more into the rules, of these specific categories.
And how is it? Does the IPR help desk help with this?
Right. Yes. So you can ask them, and then you can also ask your national contact point
Yeah.
as well. So this is also good advice. I would also say that any type of documents and videos on the funding and tenders portal, you can find support for these things as well. So they're really going into the details of these, because they know that they're sometimes complex.
Indirect costs category, the overheads.
Okay, so then the good news after all of these efforts are indirect costs, right? So several good news here. First of all, we don't have to calculate it because the table calculates it for us. So on the top of all of our total direct costs, this is excluding subcontracting.
This I have to explain. This I
Sure.
just have to explain
Yeah.
this to the listeners. So this the table that you see in the Horizon proposal template, that's a copy of the electronic budget template where you have to fill this in the participants portal. So you don't fill this table in and send it together with the proposal. You have this so you can use it when you gather your figures, but when you submit your proposals, you go into the participants portal and fill them in electronically in a table like this. So this is what Jelena just mentioned. Now it calculates the indirect cost itself when you put these figures in.
Exactly. So this is something that is sort of a gift, I would say, for all of our efforts, right? So everything else that we have that we're using for the project without directly using it for the project, our offices, electricity, computers that we use, any type of maintenance, administrative staff that is helping us run our organization. So everything else that we sort of take for granted that is just there, the commission recognizes this, and they understand that these costs exist, and then this is where we can put these
Yeah,
costs. This is 25% on top of
exactly.
everything that is our total direct cost, again minus subcontracting and some other more specific categories.
Yeah, and in the table, it's actually you can see they have in brackets afterwards the cost categories that you need to include in this, where you can take the 25% off. So it's sort of explained there.
Exactly.
So that's the cost part, and
Mhm.
you have to leave in a few minutes.
That is correct. Yes, I have until 10, so we have 7 more minutes, which I think we
So
can.
what? So let's just see how far we get, and then I will. If we don't finish everything, then I'm just gonna cover the last part of it with my old colleague when we will talk about the complexities of doing this in reality. So
Yes.
so let's just have a quick look and see. So in the estimated income part,
Mhm.
this is where we have the contribution from the commission, whatever revenues you might get, and some other sources of financing overall. So if we look at the EU contribution to the eligible cost, so here this is related to your funding from the commission. And if you look at that, you have three boxes under here. There's a funding rate one, and there's a maximum EU contribution to eligible costs, and then you have the requested EU contribution to the eligible cost. So funding rate, quite simple. That's the funding rate that you have for the call, that you have for the call and for you as an individual participant. If you're industry, that's the only exception. Industry partner in an innovation action, it's 70%, but otherwise this would always be 100% more or less.
Mhm.
Maximum EU contribution to the eligible cost. Here that's the calculation. Yeah.
Right. Exactly. That's the calculation of everything you requested.
Exactly. But let me just say, so you have the maximum EU contribution to eligible cost, then you have the requested. So those two would normally be the same.
Exactly. In most of
Yeah.
the cases, they're the same.
Yeah. What are the exceptions?
The exceptions that I can think of would be those when we are going to acquire some profit from certain activities. So, if we're planning to have a profit within the duration of the project, then this type of profit would actually be deducted from what we are requesting from the commission. The second case would be if we want to have our own resources invested in the project. This
In
can
kind.
sometimes happen in kind, exactly. This can sometimes happen also with those organizations that are, let's say, very expensive, right? So they can be, let's say, from one of the Nordic countries. They're quite expensive, and then we should not artificially push their PMs down, which is what sometimes happens. So we don't artificially push because their efforts need to be reflected, right? So
Yeah. Yeah.
everything they're going to contribute with, it needs to be visible. If you give them too little PMs, they're going to wonder if this is at all possible.
Yeah.
But you can definitely choose if they really want to participate in the project, or maybe they have some national funding that they have for this partially, or they simply want to have um, their own funds invested in this because it's important for them to participate. Then this is something that can be indicated here, and then the requested amount would be lower.
This is correct. That's correct. And just to explain the listeners, the in-kind contribution. In-kind contributions, that's very often related to technology projects. Also, if you have industry that will make a plant, that they will, for instance, they will build they are already planning to, or they have already decided to make a pilot plant commercially, and then they say, well, we will actually add this on our own costs, because we have planned it and the costs have been covered anyways now, so we will put it in, and that can be considered indirect cost. It's an example of when you would have that. So that's adding something where a partner adds something of value to the budget. without getting it refunded.
Yes, exactly.
3 minutes, Jelena. Revenues, income generated by the action. I don't think I've ever filled this one in.
Yeah, I mean, this is, in theory, it can happen indeed. That you have some type of revenue. Let's say you are organizing the final event and you want to charge.
Okay. Yeah.
Let's say this can be an example, but this is a very simple example. You can sell the technology already within the implementations. You can have exploitation already in the duration of the project. So
it doesn't happen very much.
It doesn't happen a lot. A lot, I would say. But then this would be a good case scenario, sort of, because the commission would be happy that you're exploiting your results already.
Final thing, other sources of financing, financial contributions and own resources. What are they? Financial contributions? I forgot.
Sorry, which ones?
I forgot. Financial contributions and own resources, other sources of financing.
Okay, so this can be any that I mentioned. So they can, for example, have any national funding.
Okay. Yeah.
Right. So they can have this, or you can even have international partners. Let's say you have a partner from Japan or the US.
Yeah.
Then definitely they have zero, right?
Yeah.
They have zero grant by the commission, but they still have tasks. So they can emphasize here that they would actually have some type of national funding or any other funds that may fund their activities. Or this can be true for any other partner. If you have a partial coverage of your costs by any other funding scheme, you can indicate it here, and then in this case you would only be requesting 80%, 50%, whatever this other grant may cover.
Yeah. Okay.
So this is sort of an kind of an explanation for if you requested from the commission less. Right. So if you request less, then these are the categories where you can explain why you're requesting less.
Okay. The grant. We need to finish before you run.
Yes.
Toughest challenge. I always have it as a segment. What's the toughest? What's from your point of view the toughest challenge in understanding and filling in the table?
Understanding or filling in the table. I would say it's not really related. Now I had to kind of stray away from your question because I would say it's not really related to filling out the table as much as it is related to us properly assessing everything within our budget. It's very easy to forget certain costs. It's very easy to have inexperienced partners or on board who are going to artificially push the budget up or artificially push it down so that they would fit a certain amount that you indicated for them, and then they're either unable to perform all of their tasks or they need to return a huge portion of the budget and so on. So I would say the challenges are more about balancing between everyone and making sure that really everybody understands these rules than the actual filling out, because this is kind of a technical thing if you have everything in order. So
I think
yes.
From my point of view, when I've been doing this, the most challenging thing is that it's being done in the end, where everybody's busy. And if you have, especially if you have a large consortia, then it's very difficult to keep hold everybody in the hand. And then it's very easy to run into that the figures are being put into the wrong places, or they forgot, exactly as you also just said, forgot to put things in somewhere, or that it's where you sit in the end with the with submission deadline slowly coming facing you, and the table doesn't fit, where it says no, it cannot. Right. You cannot press the button because there's something wrong in the table, and you need to find out where that is, because someone didn't put in correctly the fill things in when you send out the Excel sheets to them. So it's the complexity. The fewer partners, the easier this is. If you have a big large consortium, it can get a little hairy because everything has to be done with a rush often.
Exactly. That's a very good point. Yes. Yes, and these are also situations that happen a lot. These rushed last minute changes, both in the proposal and in the budget. So I understand.
Lena, I'm not going to keep you anymore. We managed to do that. We could have
Thank you.
talked longer, but we cannot because you have to go. So that's
Yes.
that's how it is. Thank you so much for taking your time for this. And now I'm gonna keep a hook on you as we move on. I know that you're busy in the time to come, but I might need you in 23 at some point. So I'll reach out
Okay.
when there will be anything related to this, because these are just generic, but you definitely have some things that I can be using in things, digging more into some of these layers in future episodes. So I hope that I can put you on my lead list, so to say.
Sure.
So I'm just gonna take a short fly out. So dear listeners, I really hope you enjoyed listening to this, going through the budget template, and I really hope this is helpful for you all. As you know, this initiative keeps moving on, and I try to push people to submit, so to say, to subscribe to my podcast. It's the best way for me to grow this sort of independent podcast initiative. If you have sympathy for this, by all means, please subscribe to it. It will help me a lot. For now, me and Jelena, we're gonna say bye. So, bye.
Bye, everyone. Thank you, Niels.
You're welcome. The Grant. You have been listening to The Grant, the EU funding